The breaking point. The galaxy had been quiet for 2,000 years. On the observation deck of Earth's primary orbital station, Director James Morrison watched the blue planet rotate beneath him. He was 73 years old and had spent his entire life maintaining the peace. His father had done the same. His grandfather before him. For 2,000 years, humanity had kept its promise. The promise was simple. Stay within the solar system. Never expand beyond the boundaries. Never challenge the Sovereign Council. In return, Earth would be allowed to exist. It was not freedom, but it was survival. After the First Contact War, after seeing entire cities burned from orbit, after watching millions die in the span of weeks, humanity had chosen survival. They had chosen to live in their cage rather than die reaching for the stars. Morrison had never questioned this arrangement. He had been taught from childhood that the war was ancient history. The Sovereign Council ruled 3/4 of the known galaxy. Their technology was beyond comprehension. Their military power was absolute. Challenging them was not bravery. It was suicide. So humanity had built inward instead of outward. They had created paradise within their solar system. Mars bloomed with forests. Venus held floating cities in its clouds. The moons of Jupiter housed billions. Humanity thrived even if they could never leave. His assistant, a young woman named Dr. Lisa Park, entered the observation room. She was carrying a tablet and her hands were shaking. Morrison noticed immediately. Lisa never showed fear. She was one of the brightest minds in the diplomatic corps. Calm under pressure. Always professional. But now her face was pale and tears streaked her cheeks. "Director," she whispered. "Something terrible has happened." Morrison took the tablet from her hands. He read the report once. Then twice. Then a third time, hoping the words would somehow change. They did not. The colony ship, Tomorrow's Hope, had been traveling from the asteroid settlements to Mars. It carried families, workers, teachers. Among them were 412 children from the Zenith Children's Home. The orphanage had been relocating to a new facility on Mars where the children would have space to grow, to play, to dream of futures that seemed possible within the boundaries of human space. The ship had drifted slightly off course. Nothing dangerous. A minor navigation error that would have been corrected within hours. But the course deviation had taken them within sensor range of an Imperial patrol route. The Sovereign Council maintained these routes throughout the galaxy. Species were forbidden from approaching them. The penalty for violation was always the same. Commander Thalen of the Imperial Fourth Fleet had detected the ship. He had identified it as human. He had seen that it was unarmed, that it carried no military equipment, that it posed no threat whatsoever. He had demanded they halt. The captain of Tomorrow's Hope had complied immediately. He had transmitted apologies. He had explained the navigation error. He had begged for mercy. Commander Thalen had called the situation an example of human arrogance. He had stated that the cage species needed to remember their place. He had ordered his gunners to fire. The ship had been destroyed in 47 seconds. 412 children had died instantly, along with 308 adults. All of them guilty of nothing except a minor navigation error. The Imperial Council had issued a statement. They called it regrettable. They said the ship should not have been near the patrol route. They said humanity should teach their people to respect boundaries. They said it was a lesson that would benefit everyone. They had broadcast the attack across their communication networks. Some species had watched for entertainment. Morrison sat down heavily. He had grandchildren. 3 of them. 2 girls and a boy. They were 8, 10, and 12 years old. He thought about them constantly. He loved them more than anything in the universe. The children on that ship had been the same ages. They had the same dreams. They had the same right to live. And they had been murdered as a lesson. "Convene the Global Assembly," Morrison said quietly. "Emergency session. All representatives. Within 6 hours." Lisa nodded and left quickly. Morrison stayed in the observation room. He looked down at Earth. So beautiful. So peaceful. So carefully maintained within its cage. He thought about the promise that had been kept for 2,000 years. He thought about the price of that promise. He thought about 412 children who would never grow up because someone wanted to make a point. The Global Assembly met in Geneva. Representatives from every nation on Earth gathered in the Great Hall. Additional members joined via holographic link from Mars, Venus, Luna, and the outer settlements. Every human leader was present. They had all seen the footage. The Imperial networks had made sure of that. They had watched Tomorrow's Hope explode. They had seen the debris scatter. They had heard Commander Thalen's words about teaching lessons and remembering places. The hall was silent. No one knew what to say. For 2,000 years, they had accepted every insult, every restriction, every humiliation. They had swallowed their pride because survival mattered more than dignity. But this was different. This was children. This was innocents who had done nothing wrong. This crossed a line that could not be uncrossed. Admiral Marcus Chen stood slowly. He was 91 years old. His uniform was ceremonial, decorated with medals for service during peacetime. He had never commanded a ship in battle. No living human had. War was something from history books, from ancient times, from an era that humanity had left behind. But Marcus Chen had spent his entire life preparing for a possibility he hoped would never come. His father had done the same. His grandfather before him. For 2,000 years, humanity had prepared. They killed our children, Marcus said. His voice was steady but filled with pain. They killed 412 children who had never harmed anyone. Children who were traveling to a new home. Children who had already lost everything once when they lost their parents. And the Sovereign Council calls this regrettable. They call this a lesson. He looked around the room. Every eye was locked on him. For 2,000 years we have kept the peace. We have stayed in our cage. We have accepted every restriction, every insult, every reminder that we are considered lesser beings. We told ourselves this was wisdom. We told ourselves this was survival. And perhaps it was. But there are some things that cannot be forgiven. There are some lines that should never be crossed. Marcus pressed a control on the podium. The massive screens around the hall flickered to life. The representatives gasped. They were looking at a fleet. Hundreds of ships. Thousands of ships. Vessels that should not exist. Warships built in secret over centuries. Hidden beneath the surface of Luna. Constructed in pieces in the asteroid belt. Assembled in the dark spaces between the planets. Ships that represented 2,000 years of preparation. We have not been idle, Marcus said simply. Every generation has added to this fleet. Every scientist has contributed. Every engineer has left their mark. We studied every battle the Sovereign Council ever fought. We analyzed every weapon they ever built. We found every weakness, every flaw, every vulnerability. We did this because we hoped we would never need it. But we knew that someday someone might cross a line that could not be forgiven. He turned off the display. I'm not asking for revenge. Revenge accomplishes nothing. I'm asking for justice. Those 412 children deserved better. Every child in this galaxy deserves better. We cannot allow the powerful to murder innocents without consequence. If we do, then survival means nothing. If we do, then we have already lost everything that makes us human. The vote was called. One by one, representatives cast their decision. Yes, 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 yes. The vote was unanimous. Not a single voice opposed. For the first time in 2,000 years, humanity declared war against the Sovereign Council. The declaration was transmitted across every communication channel. It reached every corner of the galaxy. Most species that heard it felt pity for humanity. This was suicide. The Sovereign Council had crushed rebellions from species far more powerful than humans. They had weapons that could destroy planets. They had armies that numbered in the trillions. Humanity was nothing compared to that power. But a few species remembered something different. They remembered the first contact war 2,000 years ago. They remembered how hard humanity had fought. They remembered that it had taken the Council 5 years to force Earth's surrender. 5 years against a species that had barely reached their own moon. They remembered the fire. They wondered if that fire still burned. On the Imperial Throne World, Sovereign Chancellor Vorn received the Human Declaration. He read it once then laughed. His advisors laughed with him. The humans declaring war was the most absurd thing they had heard in centuries. Let them come, Vorn said with amusement. Let them bring their ceremonial ships and their parade soldiers. We will remind them why they accepted the cage. We will give them another lesson they will not forget. He ordered the Fourth Fleet to remain on patrol. Commander Thalen, the officer who had destroyed tomorrow's hope, was promoted for his actions. Vorn wanted to send a clear message. The Sovereign Council did not apologize. The Sovereign Council did not negotiate. The Sovereign Council ruled absolutely, and anyone who challenged that rule would be crushed. But Vorn made one mistake. He believed humanity had spent 2,000 years doing nothing. He believed they had grown soft. He believed they had forgotten what war meant. He was wrong on all counts. In orbit around Luna, the human fleet began to move. Admiral Marcus Chen stood on the bridge of the flagship Remembrance. Around him, officers prepared for launch. Every person on that ship had volunteered. Every person knew the risks. Every person was willing to die for those 412 children who would never grow up. Set course for the 4th Fleet's patrol route, Marcus ordered. We will begin where this started. We will find Commander Thalen. And we will show the galaxy that some lines should never be crossed. The fleet jumped to faster than light speed. Across Earth, families gathered around screens. They watched the ships disappear into the darkness. They prayed for their sons and daughters, their brothers and sisters, their mothers and fathers who were going to war. They hoped for justice. They hoped for peace. They hoped that somehow humanity would survive what was coming. In his office, Director Morrison looked at the photograph on his desk. His 3 grandchildren smiled back at him. He thought about the children on tomorrow's hope. He thought about the choice humanity had made. For 2,000 years, they had chosen survival over dignity. Today they had chosen differently. Today they had chosen to fight for something bigger than themselves. He did not know if it was the right choice, but he knew it was the only choice they could live with. The galaxy was about to learn something it had forgotten. Humanity could be caged. Humanity could be controlled. Humanity could be beaten. But humanity could not be broken. And when you murdered their children, when you crossed that final line, when you took away the innocence that every species holds sacred, you would discover something terrible. You would discover why humanity had survived every challenge in their history. You would discover why they had crawled out of caves and reached for the stars. You would discover why 2,000 years in a cage had not destroyed them. The galaxy was about to remember what humanity truly was. The first strike. The Imperial 4th Fleet patrolled the eastern sector with absolute confidence. Commander Thalen sat in his command chair aboard the battleship, Eternal Dominance, and reviewed reports from his subordinates. 50 warships under his command. 10,000 soldiers. Weapons capable of destroying moons. He was untouchable. The promotion from the Sovereign Chancellor had arrived that morning. Thalen smiled as he read the official commendation. His actions against the human vessel had been praised as decisive leadership. The Chancellor himself had called it a necessary demonstration of imperial authority. Thalen felt no guilt about the destroyed ship. He had simply followed protocol. Unauthorized vessels near patrol routes were eliminated. It did not matter if they were armed or unarmed, dangerous or harmless. Rules existed for a reason. The humans had broken those rules. They had faced the consequences. If anything, Thalen believed he had done them a favor. Perhaps now they would learn to stay in their cage properly. His sensor officer interrupted his thoughts. Commander, we have detected multiple faster-than-light signatures. Unknown vessels approaching our position. Thalen frowned. Identify them. The sensor officer worked at his console for several moments. His expression shifted from curiosity to confusion to something that looked like fear. Commander, the signatures match no known Imperial vessels. Computer analysis suggests they are human in origin. I am detecting over 200 ships. 200 human ships? Thalen laughed. Impossible. The humans have no military fleet. They have cargo vessels and passenger transports. Nothing more. Commander, visual confirmation coming through now. The main view screen flickered to life. Thalen stopped laughing. The ships that appeared were unlike anything in Imperial records. They were sleek where Imperial vessels were massive. They were elegant where Imperial design was brutal. But there was no mistaking their purpose. These were warships. Every line of their construction spoke of deadly intent. Weapons bristled from their hulls. Their engines glowed with power that sensors could barely measure. And there were so many of them. Battle stations, Thalen ordered. His voice remained calm, but something cold had settled in his chest. All ships formed defensive formation. Charge weapons. Raise shields. The 4th Fleet moved into position. 50 Imperial warships against 200 human vessels. The numbers were concerning, but Thalen reminded himself that the Sovereign Council had never lost a major engagement. Their technology was superior. Their weapons were tested across 10,000 years of conquest. Whatever the humans had built during their imprisonment, it could not match Imperial power. A communication request came through. Thalen accepted it. The face that appeared on his screen belonged to an old human male. He wore a simple uniform with minimal decoration. His eyes were hard and cold. Commander Thalen, the human said. His voice was steady. I am Admiral Marcus Chen of the United Earth Navy. You are responsible for the destruction of the colony ship Tomorrow's Hope. You murdered 412 children who posed no threat to anyone. I am here to place you under arrest for crimes against innocent life. Thalen stared at the screen in disbelief. Then he began to laugh again. You dare to threaten me? You dare to speak of arrest? I am a commander of the Imperial 4th Fleet. I serve the Sovereign Council. I answer to no one except my superiors. Certainly not to caged primitives who have forgotten their place. I gave you a chance, Marcus said quietly. Remember that. The communication ended. Thalen immediately ordered his fleet to open fire. 50 Imperial warships unleashed their weapons simultaneously. Energy beams that could slice through planetary crust. Missiles that carried enough explosive force to level cities. The firepower was staggering. It was enough to destroy a small fleet 10 times over. The human ships simply moved. They did not dodge like other species. They did not absorb damage with shields. They flowed like water between the attacks. Their engines operated on principles that Imperial sensors could not identify. Every weapon fired by the Fourth Fleet hit nothing but empty space. Then the humans responded. But they did not fire energy weapons. They did not launch missiles. Instead, they transmitted something. Signals. Codes. Instructions. Across the Imperial fleet, systems began to fail. Thalen watched in horror as his tactical display went dark. Weapons that had been charging suddenly powered down. Shield generators that should have been at maximum strength simply turned off. His navigation systems became unresponsive. Life support began to fluctuate. What is happening? Thalen shouted. Report. His chief engineer's voice came through on emergency channels. Commander, something is accessing our primary systems. It is rewriting our operating protocols. I have never seen anything like this. It is as if our own ships are being turned against us. Throughout the Fourth Fleet, the same crisis was unfolding. Imperial warships that had ruled the stars for millennia were being disabled by technology they could not comprehend. Some vessels lost power completely and drifted helplessly. Others had their weapons lock onto their own fleet mates. The orbital defense satellites that protected the patrol route began firing at Imperial ships instead of the human vessels. It took 17 minutes. 17 minutes for 200 human ships to completely disable 50 Imperial warships without destroying a single one. Not one Imperial soldier died. Not one ship exploded. The humans had simply taken away their ability to fight and left them floating in space like toys abandoned by children. Admiral Marcus Chen's face appeared on every screen throughout the Fourth Fleet. Attention Imperial forces. Your weapons are disabled. Your shields are down. Your ships are under our control. You cannot harm us. You cannot escape. You cannot call for help. Your lives are entirely in our hands. He paused to let those words sink in. 2,000 years ago, when you first met humanity, you captured some of our ships. You studied our technology. You learned everything about how we built things. What you did not realize is that we also captured some of your ships. And we have spent 2,000 years studying them. Every system. Every protocol. Every line of code. We know your technology better than you do. We know every weakness. Every flaw. Every vulnerability. Marcus leaned forward. You killed our children, Commander Thalen. You murdered 412 innocents and called it a lesson. Now I want you to learn something. We could destroy your entire fleet right now. Every ship. Every person. It would take us less than 5 minutes. But we will not do that. Do you know why? Thalen said nothing. He could not speak. Terror had frozen his voice. Because we are not like you, Marcus continued. We do not believe that power gives us the right to kill without reason. We do not believe that innocent lives are expendable. We are going to take you prisoner. We are going to treat you with dignity. We are going to care for your wounded. And then we are going to put you on trial for what you did. Not revenge. Justice. Human boarding craft began to dock with Imperial vessels. Thalen watched as soldiers in advanced armor entered his ship. They moved with precision and discipline. They secured each section methodically. When they reached the bridge, they did not shoot. They simply placed restraints on the command crew and escorted them to holding areas. Thalen was taken aboard a human transport. He expected torture. He expected execution. Instead, he was placed in a clean cell with a comfortable bed. He was given food and water. A human doctor checked his health and treated a minor injury he had sustained when his command chair collapsed during the system's failure. The doctor was professional and courteous. Why are you doing this? Thalen finally asked. Why are you treating us well? We are your enemies. The doctor, an older woman with gray hair, looked at him with sad eyes. You are a soldier who followed orders. That does not make you innocent, but it does not make you a monster either. The person we want is you, Commander. You gave the order to fire on unarmed children. But even you deserve a fair trial and humane treatment. That is what separates us from you. News of the Fourth Fleet's defeat spread across the galaxy within hours. Every species with access to communication networks heard the story. The humans had emerged from their cage. They had defeated an Imperial fleet without firing a single lethal shot. They had captured every ship intact. They had taken prisoners and treated them with respect. This was unprecedented. When the Sovereign Council conquered a species, they showed no mercy. Cities burned. Populations were enslaved. Resistance was met with complete annihilation. But the humans had won decisively and shown restraint. It confused everyone. It frightened the Imperial leadership. It gave hope to conquered species across the galaxy. On the throne world, Sovereign Chancellor Vorn stopped laughing. He sat in his private chambers and watched the reports repeatedly. 50 warships disabled in 17 minutes. Technology that could rewrite Imperial systems. A fleet that had been hidden for 2,000 years. This was not luck. This was not a minor victory. This was something far more dangerous. The humans had been preparing. They had been learning. They had been waiting. Summon the High Command, Vorn ordered his attendants. Immediately. Within hours, the most powerful military leaders in the Sovereign Council gathered. Generals who had conquered 100 worlds. Admirals who commanded fleets that numbered in the thousands. They looked at the footage from the Fourth Fleet's defeat and saw something that terrified them. They saw an enemy that understood their technology better than they did. They saw an enemy that could disable their weapons with ease. They saw an enemy that fought with discipline and restraint even in victory. We underestimated them, Admiral Kresh admitted. She was the oldest member of the High Command, a veteran of 3 major campaigns. We believed they had spent 2,000 years growing weak. Instead, they spent 2,000 years growing stronger in ways we never anticipated. They studied us while we ignored them. Then we crushed them now, General Vex snarled. He was younger and more aggressive. We send overwhelming force. We destroy Earth before they can spread. We show the galaxy what happens when species challenge us. And if they can disable a fleet of 50 ships in 17 minutes, Kresh countered, what happens when we send 500? Or 5,000? Do we risk losing our entire military to technology we cannot counter? The room fell silent. No one had an answer. Vorn listened to the debate and felt something he had not experienced in his 3 centuries of rule. He felt doubt. The Sovereign Council had maintained power through absolute dominance. They had never needed to negotiate. They had never needed to compromise. They simply crushed anyone who opposed them. But the humans were different. They had the power to fight back. They had the technology to win. And they had shown something even more dangerous. They had shown restraint. The humans are not seeking conquest, one of the advisors noted. Their admiral said they want justice. They want Commander Thalen and those responsible for the attack. They are not demanding territory. They are not demanding resources. They are demanding accountability. We do not give accountability to primitives, Vex shouted. We rule. They obey. That is the natural order. The natural order is changing, Kresh said quietly, whether we like it or not. Meanwhile, Ambassador Sarah Rodriguez stood before the Galactic Assembly. She was the first human to address this body in 2,000 years. Representatives from 300 species watched as she walked to the central platform. Some looked at her with curiosity, others with fear. A few with something that might have been hope. For 2,000 years we stayed silent, Sarah began. We accepted our cage. We swallowed every insult. We endured every restriction. We told ourselves that peace was worth any price. And perhaps it was. But there are some prices that should never be paid. There are some lines that should never be crossed. She activated a holographic display. 412 faces appeared in the air. Children smiling. Children laughing. Children dreaming of futures they would never see. These are the children of the Zenith home. They were traveling to a new facility on Mars. They were guilty of nothing except a minor navigation error. They were murdered without warning. Without mercy. Without reason. The chamber was completely silent. Every species represented in that room understood the value of children. Every culture in the galaxy held the protection of the young as sacred. What the Imperial Fourth Fleet had done violated something fundamental. We are not here for revenge, Sarah continued. We are not here for conquest. We are not here to replace the Sovereign Council with human rule. We are here for one simple thing. Justice. We want those responsible for this massacre to face trial. We want them to answer for what they did. We want the galaxy to see that there are consequences for murdering innocents. She looked around the chamber. I know many of you fear the Sovereign Council. I know you have survived by obeying them. I know you believe challenging them means death. But I want you to watch what happens next. I want you to see that they can be opposed. I want you to see that fear does not have to last forever. Sarah stepped down from the platform. She walked out of the chamber in silence. Behind her, representatives began to whisper among themselves. Some called her brave. Others called her foolish. But everyone agreed on one thing. Something fundamental had changed. The cage had opened, and no one knew what would happen next. The human fleet moved deeper into Imperial space. They did not hide. They broadcast their position openly. They moved steadily toward Garrison 7, a major Imperial military installation. Admiral Marcus Chen stood on the bridge of the Remembrance and watched the stars pass by. He thought about the children on tomorrow's hope. He thought about the choice humanity had made. He thought about the path they had started down. "Admiral," his communications officer reported, "we are receiving messages from other species. Some are offering support. Others are warning us to turn back. A few are asking if we need assistance." Marcus nodded slowly. "Acknowledge all messages. Thank those offering help but politely decline. This is humanity's fight. We will see it through ourselves. And those warning us to turn back? Tell them we appreciate their concern. But we will not turn back. Not until justice is served." The fleet continued forward. Behind them, Earth watched and waited. Ahead of them, the Sovereign Council prepared for war. And throughout the galaxy, species that had lived in fear for thousands of years began to wonder if freedom was finally possible. The battle for Garrison 7 was 3 days away. The outcome would determine the future of the entire galaxy. And 412 children who would never grow up had started something that no one could stop.